So we don't live stream this meeting, so we just click record so we can. Not sure if we are. recording.
All right, okay, so we can start. Welcome everyone. We'll start with an opening karakia and the deputy mayor, please.
Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga, kia mā kina kina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai, e he ake ana te ātakura, he tio, he huka, he hauhu, tihei, Māori ora.
Amen. Thanks. We have some apologies and declarations of interest. So we've got an apology from Miromiro. He's away. And also we have Graham, our chair, you notice me sitting here, has been in a meeting that he couldn't raise in a traditional video conference at the moment. He's expecting to be about 15 minutes to up and out. So apologies for lateness from him. And that's it. I think Councillor Floyd did say she normally does often, but I don't think she's a member of the committee, but those are the apologies. So
Happy to move.
happy to move, still a seconder. So all in favour of apologies, seconder was Councillor McNally. All in favour of apologies. Aye. Again, carried. We also had from Graham, because of his a recent appointment, we actually got a conflict of interest he wants noted. And he's the chair of the West Coast Regional
Assurance of risk.
Assurance and Risk Committee. Yeah. So that's just to note that. And that will be recorded. I don't really have any announcements. Being a bit of a rush, I know our Chair Graham often does. We have some challenging times. I will make a bit of an announcement. It shouldn't affect us, but probably you've heard about the regional deal. So there's been a lot of interest recently in the paper. In terms of risk that may impose on us, I can't see that as being, at this stage, from my own assessment, as being any major risk there. There are obviously some considerations we need to take into account, but at this stage, it's really important to note that what was put forward by us, the light touch application, is just that, a light touch application. There's been no announcements made in terms of a regional deal. There will be one this year when it's made, and in the following year there'll be two others. Hopefully one of those, and then we have to get down to some serious business case and serious detail. But right now, it's just simply where our application has gone out and we made it available publicly because rather than having to be confidential, with the government said, since all the applications are in, not going to influence each other, you can, if you wish, make it public. And we did that because of the interest and because of the desire to see that government. But as we proceed, should we be selected, then we can, I suspect we'll get something coming to the committee in terms of interest. Okay, moving on to 4.1, confirmation of previous minutes. And that's on page 12. Can I have a move? Are there any errors noted in the minutes? Anybody else notice any errors? Right, then let's vote. All in favour? Against? Carried. Over reputation of getting things done pretty quickly, so coming to move that done by 42. So moving on. And please do, please do yes, all of that comment. So moving on to item 5.1, which is on page 18, and that I have a move in the second, please, for the Council Financial Report for the period ending 28th of February 2025. Mover and seconder.
Okay, I'll move.
Deputy Mayor again. You got your weight there, Deputy Mayor, and we have a seconder in Councillor McNally. Okay, over to. Who's got a comment?
Through the chair, I'll just preempt the discussion by saying that we're heading for carry forward this year. There'll be more on that one, but otherwise I'll hand over to Charlie Billington to comment.
Through the chair, thank you, Guy. Angie, thank you. Wait.
I'll take this report as being read. So from the high level overview, you will see that we are tracking behind our total year-to-date income by 7.9 mil. And also within operational expenditure, we're behind by 15.5. In terms of income, we're getting a lot more, we're behind mainly due to timing, which we have been working quite closely with across the organisation, but haven't quite got there as yet. Some of the highlights in here is in terms of resource consents and animal management. Also within expenditure, it's although the contractor's been working hard operationally, we still are behind. Is also with professional fees where we're not utilising the budgets as yet. I suppose the good news story, as we all know, Kaikohe Library has been, which is the good news. But coming back to Guy's statement in terms of capital, although the financials, we are showing that we're not actually spending, although year to date we are ahead of budget, but when you're looking at the overall picture, we seem to be lagging in terms of progress for capital. Treasury, we're in a good cash flow position. We've been talking with our advisors at the stage, and we will be coming up for another renewal for our facilities. So any questions?
I'm sure there will be. I've just handed over to members now for questions. And if you're online, raise your hand. I'm sure someone's put it in. Any questions?
Angie, are there any, Chair, are there any changes to what's being reported in what line, which will be impacting what we're seeing today? Like, there's so much red in the report. So I get that the 5.5 million dividend is coming later in the financial year, but are there other, like the professional fees being separated out, impact? Are there any line items that are impacting why it's so red today?
It's mainly, like I come back to, it's mainly the timing of the budgets. And we have been working with the organisation, but we just haven't quite got it there. I think we've been quite clear in our messaging in terms of moving forward that we're planning for items or our work programs that we need to be a little bit more clearer in what we're doing.
It's timing and delivery.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to the income, aside from the 5.5 million, that is the timing of receiving or invoicing.
Invoicing.
Cool. I think I'll have another question after that.
Yes. Councillor Court.
I was particularly interested on page 24 about the higher than expected reactive maintenance costs. They are significant. Kawakawa 335, Piri 214. Now, while that offset, a question that went through my mind is what is driving such a significant spend in reactive maintenance? I suspect I know the answer at Kamakawa because we've had a lot of broken pipes there, but it's not clear to me whether or not we've got our capital renewal program correctly aligned.
Thanks. Can somebody respond?
Through the chair, the Kawakawa line will be the significant leak. Majority of their spend would have been on that. Just have a question that I'll take offline about whether that will be capitalised later on, but that would have been what that significant cost was.
When we add all those up, we're at $900,000 in reactive maintenance. And I'm just wondering whether or not we need to sit down and reflect on our capital works so we can avoid these kind of costs moving forward.
My response to that would be that, yeah, it's not acceptable. It's a hallmark of our operations and maintenance program and our contract with Ventia. It's something we're working on. We have a new staff member that is specifically responsible for focusing on that contract and the works that are getting done. But and obviously we're just going into that extension phase for the Ventia contract and making some changes there. Big picture, the other work streams that will impact that but take time, work that McKenzie is doing with our asset management and our asset strategies. So once again, we just need to keep the pressure on that space and do better. We have to do better. But it is unfortunately a hallmark of where at the moment.
Yeah, Councillor McNally.
Yeah, the moment reactive pops up, asset management is the problem. Because if you have asset management right, you'd know what needed maintenance, you'd know where the problems were, and you'd be ahead of the game. We're not. The other thing that I was underlined other than reactive was unbudgeted expenditure, and there's a fair bit of that. And projects behind schedule. But what I want to talk about, page 31, 32, 33, all carry forwards from 23, 24 to 24, 25, and it looks like they're going to be carried forward again, which is mainly our slip repair work, well, emergency works. So, but it says unbudgeted. I would have thought that slip repair had a pretty significant fire rate associated with it, or do we lose it if we haven't done it by the end of this year?
Which would be a significant risk.
$31 million of it actually.
The chair. We will review the classification just to make sure that it's accurate. I note that there has been a revision in the way that this has been presented from the previous ARF report, whereby the subsidised or the funded components of that work are presented with what you have in front of you today, where previously it was like one line item for the cost and one line item, you know, on the second or third page down for the subsidy associated with that. The next report that you will receive on a project basis will have those two together, so we can see what the subsidisation and the net position to council looks like. And I'll just double check on that unbudgeted classification, because I would expect these are large projects which cover multiple years, and it's in all likelihood going to see carry forwards as those projects span multiple years. So I wouldn't see that as being a concern, but on a project by project basis, we're looking at enhancing this reporting so that we're able to then present elected members with the financial information for each of these individual projects, and at in the appropriate committee, be it an ARF or Te Koko, then also by progress updates should that be required for an individual project basis. So watch this space. We're looking at improving that reporting on both elements there.
Yeah, the other part that you need to look at is part of these emergency works we're relating to the panel, the other contractor. So the procurement process has potentially held us up a bit, and members, so we just need an update across all those areas, please.
Thanks, Charlie. The mention of having the subsidies beside that was something that I know that Ryan himself have been asking for. Expected it this time around. I think we'll just say no, it won't be, but it will be the next time, which would be helpful. And in terms of the carry forward, when you've got a large project allocated for 3 years, maybe we can clarify that as well, because obviously you can't expect to spend a 3-year allocation in the first year. But at least we know that we can see it going forward, so that we can see we genuine carry forwards occurring. Work for the annual work is not done, which is a big concern that Councillor Canelli has.
It's about the subsidy. That's quite a high far rate, that emergency works.
Councillor Court.
Oh, one additional question, and I'm sorry, I forgot, probably more of a statement, and it really is just rats and mice. So we're talking about unbudgeted expenditure for our 2 dog pounds. These are brand new facilities, so I was a little bit surprised to see that in there. And it raised questions in my mind about project scoping. So I just wanted to raise that through the CEO that when we are, for me, for government comfort, if we're scoping a project and we're seeking budget, that we've considered all elements of the project and we're not putting back the money because we've missed something. And it's only $50,000, so I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. I think it's just a matter of principle.
Yeah, that's a good point. It is a good point. Maybe. People saying, Councillor Radich, yes.
Just on page, was it 22, central government subsidies received, roading and footpaths, 11.3, operational, 3.9. Has this been itemised to where the money is being spent? Or have I missed a track? I just want to know where that money's gone to. Is it, there's so much coming to the Te Hika ward, etc., because our roads at this very moment are a mess. We've got all this money, and where's it gone to? Has anyone got a clue?
Thanks, Matty. I'll just ask. I think everybody knows. I suspect it is itemised.
Yeah, the subsidies.
Yeah.
Yes, so on page 22, the subsidies being allocated, 11.3 to roading and footpaths. Of that, 3.9 is for new works and 4.4 is for renewals.
Yeah, I'm aware of that, but where is it being spent?
Yeah, I think Matty is asking what actual projects where
That's right. Well, where is it being spent?
Can I have a quick?
Yeah, Councillor Court, and then Charlie, you can respond.
This is income, so this will be our share of the NZTA approved National Land Transport Fund for our work program that's already been adopted through the long-term plan. So it's not additional money, it's just an accounting ledger entry.
Yeah, I think Matty understands that as well, but Charlie, did you want to say? Yeah, comments?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So in relation to that, also on page 24, we've noted that there is under budget of road and footpaths as well. So what we're seeing is a timing mismatch. In order to receive the subsidy, there needs to be the appropriate project information that's submitted to receive the funding. So there will be a breakdown of that. We can circulate that back if that's required. What we are seeing is an accounting timing mismatch, whereby you've got income received as being reported and the expenditure hasn't been recorded at the same time. The project will be planned and we can provide the relevant detail to substantiate that for Councillor Radich.
No, I haven't got it. Forget it. Page 25, external services. I see they demolished a swimming pool and cost 205,000. Did the people of Te Hiku have a say in this before it got demolished? Because I don't recall this, and that was a very important pool to our community. It was heavily used during the summertime, and suddenly it's gone. Did it ever go to the community of Kaitaia? Can anyone answer that?
Sure, there's an answer to that. Who's going to comment on that one?
specifically don't have the details, but my assumption was always that with the new sports centre being set up and new pools, that consultation had been done, that the community didn't require this facility, which was obviously very old and expensive to maintain, was my understanding. It was no longer economical.
Yeah.
We can do some more research on that to find out specifically what process was undertaken.
Yeah, pretty sure that's. Councillor Rudich. Any other?
Yeah. I was pretty heavily involved with the Kairo swimming pool for a long time. It was a great pool. And you need to understand that the sports hub, that's a heated swimming pool. You know, there was always room for an outdoor pool. And you're right, Guy, it did cost money to run it because it was a shambles at the time. All they need to do was to put in new pumps, and it would have been, we wouldn't have a blinking financial problem, but it never happened. And it's quite sad, really, when I went and had a look. I didn't even know it got demolished. The other week I went for a drive and there it was, all in grass. I didn't know as a councillor.
So Councillor Rudich, I think there's information here that Angela's just showing from a distance, which I can't read. I think she can send that through to you and that'll give you your answer. So thank you.
Good, if you can send that through, because the people of Kairo need to know. Thank you.
So the comps, I think, to community was just read the pool was actually built in 1947. It was
True.
increasingly uneconomical to run.
Yeah.
And
So you'll get an email, and I guess going back to what was asked of Charlie before, just so that those around the table, the members around the table, Charlie will send an email, I presume, rather than waiting till the next meeting and inform all the members. So thank you.
That is important, Charlie, on the roading, because you know we get all this money and our roads have gone backwards. That's the confusing part about it all. There's all this central, you know, from government hoping there's going to be an improvement, and we're going downhill.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Rudich. I think you'll find in the next, the infrastructure committee, you'll find that there has been quite a bit of spend on the roads, and you can see it coming through here as well. Councillor, Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, just coming to page 37, just wanted to get into our liquidity and our borrowing capability. And also on page 36, our debts becoming due for payment. And yeah, just with the issue of timing in our revenue, you know, being lower than estimated, how are we going with the 52 million that is meant to be due next 3 months? Because I think last time we were just going to be refinancing when there was a big sum. So last year, I think we were at 290 million. And now we're going to be 294. What are we doing to ensure that we're not just keeping on refinancing, pushing out debt for the next generation?
Questions. So as you get a facility which is becoming due, we typically do extend the term of that facility. We're in a position at the moment where our capital program is requiring that we draw on funds. So we're in, FNDC is in a comparatively low debt position by comparison to some other councils across the country, as is evidenced on page 37. Net debt to revenue ratio is 64% currently. We have a legislative cap of 280%. However, because we do have a capital program that we are delivering on, we typically will use our short-term liquidity facility with a commercial bank to fund the capital program and any operational expenses that we have. And then as we have reach a safety buffer in terms of our funding requirements on that facility, we will then use our local government funding agency to then draw additional debt to fund the program.
At a lower interest rate. So, yeah, so we've gone from 137% liquidity to 121% this year. And like, we want to be greater than 110% here. What is the alarm, like, are alarm bells ringing for you yet? No, because we've got the local government asset funding.
No, so great question again. In relation to this percentage, this just makes sure that you've got enough money to pay your liabilities as they're coming up. So you've got enough surplus cash flow for that. But the ratio will fluctuate depending on the time that it's calculated through our cycles and when we're drawing that funding down. So
The timing and the invoicing.
correct, that's right.
External funds coming in will come into play there.
Yes, yeah, that's right. And what we do need to be cognizant of at the same time is making sure we will be billing our ratepayers, on the regular cycle, but we need to also be keeping an eye on the arrears balances which accumulate and making sure that we are taking the active steps. So we're not just relying on the availability of the facility, but we're also not allowing our receivable balance to accumulate over time as well. And we do have a paper in front of us today which we can touch on what we're observing in that space.
Yeah. Final question is about where is it, so that we've discussed in the past the investments money. So we do have cash sitting in the bank, which I guess helps keep us liquid. Some in investment, earning money, hopefully, which is more than paying in our debts. How often are we reviewing that?
Periodically, we evaluate what the return on any investment would be. The primary source of that is our CCTO final holdings in terms of ensuring that the dividends or the return that we receive on the funds that they manage on behalf of council is providing in terms of both the financial return and the other strategic objectives that council sets for.
Going to ask the LCE guy to respond.
Yeah,
as well.
thank you, Sean. Just a sort of high level comment on this. First up, thanks to the corporate services team for upgrading our financial reporting. We're getting more granularity in the details, which is promoting a better discussion around our financial accounts, which is good. So we encourage that, and that will continue. So that, for example, that capital works. We will continue pushing for more transparency into our financial situation. A good example will be that I want to see a balance sheet map. I've talked about this in the past. We have a new, I think we have a new CFO lined up and coming on board quite soon. So we should be able to take another step up or a step forward on that front. So generally, we're trying to provide more information, more transparency and more granularity to promote these discussions so that we have better awareness as we go through the year. With regards to debt and liquidity management, two separate things, really. Liquidity management is day-to-day. That's like managing your chip account and your current account and your household. Debt, we have a high level of debt, I think, and it's forecast to continue, and that really is down to our LTP and the decisions you'll take on what we're spending money on. But certainly we're forecast to continue accruing debt for quite some time, and obviously the infrastructure spend will feed into that significantly. A good example of how I want to try and tackle that and give councillors options is by expanding this balance sheet management initiative, the balance sheet mapping that I'm talking about, but also the pipeline of developments with Far North Holdings, so that we have a range of options where we hopefully can liberate capital that will pay down debt. So we sort of have a constant focus on trying to manage that debt efficiently if we can.
Can I finish asking my questions now?
Oh, sorry, Councillor McNally, I wasn't cutting you off. Go right ahead. And then after you, I'll sum up.
So just looking at pages 39, 40, 41, and it refers to the LTP budget. Is that for just the LTP year one, or is it, some of the numbers don't look to add up? Just year one? Yeah. Okay. And on page 40, the second line down under controllable income and the expenditure, it's got environmental management. There's income there of 5.4 million and there's expenditure of 8.2. What do we actually do with environmental management? That's the first question. And second, is this a duplication of NRC function?
No, environmental management covers like resource consents, building consents, compliance, that type of activity.
Including environmental health services.
Yeah, this is like all the regulatory things. Got animal management and all that sort of thing. Sorry.
Okay, maybe it's just a tab that threw me. I thought you had taken water samples.
No.
And then 41 or 17, it shows that where I was just wondered, you've got a budget spend there, total annual budget for the LTP. It appears to be, is that still year one? All that 115 million and we spent 35 year to date. Is that for the 3 years?
No, it's year one only.
A long way behind.
Yep.
That's me.
Thanks, Councillor McNair. I did have a few questions, but I'll just quickly zip through what they were. The first one we covered there. It was just point. I noticed something which is similar. Oh, actually, it's good news to see that tourist numbers increased and sales increased by enough money. That's a bit of a plus. Visitors are coming back. On page 22, the 197K reimbursement of power bills. Wasn't sure about that, but I did have a similar thought, and I could be wrong, to what Councillor Court raised, and that is the full budget of, of a project and operation of it. And there was another one somewhere too, which I is sort of along those lines, but yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So, geez, is that, what does that relate to? Is that just the part of the ongoing operations of that?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. And it wasn't considered or was greater than expected.
Oh, I think it was just the timing of it at the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, now that we've all caught up with it, this is just the reflection of it.
And a similar thought, and it's on page, just this is a few, I think. On page 27, notice that the Rangatoni Maritime boat rent is 200K. So I presume there are additional funds to spend still in that area. Just like, yes, no.
Which page?
Page 27, the Rangatoni Maritime boat rent 200K is being reconciled against other projects that have been delivered by finals. Just the explanation on taking what that means.
I think this is just in terms of what's been spent to date, but that there needs to be an overall reconciliation with the projects that Barnwell Holdings is managing.
Yes. Okay. And that's what it was. All the other key ones were focused. So I'll leave it at that. So we have a move and a seconder. I'm going to swap to the vote. All in favour, aye. Against, carried. And now we go to item 5.2 on page 43. And that the health, safety and wellbeing would come on a move and a seconder, please. Happy move. Thank you, Mayor. I'll second it. And we can then hand over to comment. Mr. Tracy, you got a comment? Do you want to make general comments at all?
Well, not at all, just take the report as read, however, Ian is at the table to answer questions you might have.
Thanks, Josie. So questions from members here and online? Well, no concerns whatsoever.
I have a question on behalf of Graham Glynn, so we've been just discussing this. Ian, I actually always assumed this was the case, but Graham just asked, when we have a critical event, have we got like a written response plan set out?
So places like the water treatment place, and they're actually written on our event here. For our council offices and libraries and that kind of thing, we have like a fire response plan, and we have some lockdown plans. But Graham mentioned this to me as well, actually. If he was asking me specifically, if we had a health and safety type accident or incident that occurred on one of our sites, do we have a formal process about making the site secure, taking into account whether there's going to be any necessity for a safe investigation, and so not disturbing any evidence, and then what the process would be about calling in 111 and if necessary then prepare for an ambulance and prepare first aid. So the reality on that is I'm going to say no, really. Okay. For those processes. So it's something that we've got in our work.
Okay, so I think Graham's concern was that if something big happens, do we have a sense of order? Do we have a sort of a pre-planned order of events and priorities of things that staff involved in it would know just to follow?
Yeah.
So is that something we should develop?
Yes.
Okay.
So we have sort of loose responsibility because we have trained fire wardens, we have trained first aiders throughout the building. So as part of their training and qualifications, they will have gone through what it's like to deal with an incident like that. But it is a gap in our processes to have that, and I think it would be useful to formalise it.
So you make a plan to
Yeah.
let's outline, let's quantify what that gap is and come up with that. Thank you.
I have a question, and can you give me assurance that staff actually say, look, I'm looking at this about 10 incidents of threatening behaviour, and you obviously done the training in terms of how to handle those situations and things. And oddly, the three were in Kaike Library. The fact that was only threatening behaviour in the Kaike area, which is a bit of a surprise, what's going on in the library. So just so the health and well-being of staff in those situations can give you assurance that there is actually will be covered at that. It's not.
So threatening behaviour is listed as a critical risk to council.
Yeah.
We've only got 6, that's one of them. And so like all our critical risks, we have a set of controls in place to try and mitigate what those risks are. The controls are usually set through policy, standard operating procedures, risk assessment for the role, and then that goes into detail about the controls that we have in place to mitigate and reduce those risks to an acceptable level. Kaikoura Library often gets threatening behaviour incidents occurring there because of location and the fact that a bottle store right next to it, that kind of thing. So unfortunately for those guys, they do get a lot of flack. But so we do have various controls in place there, for example. So if you wanted to go into more detail about this, John, I can take it offline and walk you through actually what the controls are.
Yeah, and that's fine. It said, look, there's 11 of them actually. I couldn't count, but there were 3 in Kaikoura Library, which makes sense. I think I was raised. So just So there is a follow-up, and just looking at your process, so when something occurs, there is a follow-up, and there's obviously you take it from there depending on how potentially serious they are.
Yeah, so that's where things like the start warning flags come in. For example, you know, if we've got names and addresses of challenging customers that have exhibited threatening behaviour against our various officers, then that would get listed with the start warning flag. And start to know that portion of the product controls that are listed on the start warning flag.
Thank you. Okay, any questions from members? No?
Observation.
Yep.
As an avid reader of the New Zealand Herald, there have been 3 stories this week. An attack on Shane Jones' wife at the airport. Threatening behaviour to such a degree that near time he gets sort of a road and near way around of Auckland now have security. There is escalating public violence against elected members occurring out there. I think we've been blessed so far, it hasn't happened here. It's also that I'm aware of, but it's just something that I think we need to be mindful and we need to have a plan in place. Should any of our elected members reach out and say, I'm not comfortable. We have a lot in place here for staff and that's fantastic. And I know comments there that if the elected members are going to meet with someone, they should check if they're the SWF. But I'm actually talking about the next level.
I think that's a good point. Cool. Okay. Okay, no other comments. I'm going to put it to the vote. All in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Then moving on to item 8.3 on page 54. The final thing I think is here.
3, they should be.
Oh, okay.
I did say.
I'll skip.
It's early, so they might.
If they're not here, you can, yeah. I'll skip to 5.4. So I'll move to item 5.4, the revenue recovery report as of the 5th of December 2024. Page 66. I'll move in a second, please. Thank you. Mayor. Thank you, the whole lot of them.
Sorry,
Great.
everyone's just.
And a second. Oh, well, I'll second. Everybody asleep. So 5.4 revenue recovery report. Do we have any questions? Right. Oh, can this
No, carry on, finish the item.
finish the item?
Get a good.
Yeah. So thanks, Graham. We're on item 5.4. We're a bit early for final following. So we'll skip to 5.4. Right now, I'm just asking all the members if there's any comments on 5.4, which is the revenue recovery. Read us.
Thank you. On page 74, it's a bit of a description of definitions and stuff. Can you refresh my memory on what the process is before a property is sold? Because we've done lots of demands this last year. I recall papers would come to council for approval. So I just want to double check what step that happens.
Okay. Through the chair, in regards to that question, so with liquidation, we are notified by the agent that is handling the liquidation of the company to put in our creditors notice in. Once they've done their process, they come back to us, and depending on what that outcome is for the liquidation, then we would look at, because previously what they'll do is they'll sell any of the assets and pay out the creditors, and then what is remaining, it comes down to what those recommendations are that comes from the agent on that. So with anything that we are selling at the moment, we did have a paper that came to council for a rating sale, which was endorsed by elected members. That is currently going through the High Court at this time of moment.
That's a while back.
Yes, and I am looking at another property that we have had judgment on and a charging order for a paper to come to council for endorsement from elected members for another rating sale. So we do weigh up the options before we proceed to a rating sale.
Thank you, Zena.
Any other comments from members? Yeah, Graham.
Yes, just on the Maori freehold land rates. It's remained reasonably static, but my question is, are we confident that the classification of the land is correct and that therefore the number that we have sitting here as due to the council is actually correct? Or is there ratings on land which potentially should not have ratings levied on it, and therefore we have a issue on classification?
Can answer that question through the chair. So at the moment, we are within the working group, the Whenua Māori Rating Relief Working Group. Revenue Recovery are currently reviewing 2,501 accounts manually. We have to date, as of yesterday, reviewed 297 of those accounts. From the review that we're currently still doing and tracking through, we've found that 10 of those properties are actually not Māori freehold land. They are actually general title based on the CT, and we've double checked that with LINZ as well. So as we move forward and currently review all these accounts, we'll have a clearer idea, hopefully by the end of this rating year. We do endeavour to review those by the 30th of June this year.
So as it comes up, you do your thorough checks at that point. Yep. Any further questions?
Just to add to Zena's description of the progress that the working group is making, we do recognise that our database of whenua Māori freehold land needs review in order to ensure that the rates are being correctly applied and any rating policies or the Act are being applied appropriately. The team are taking a detailed approach on an account by account basis to make sure that that is being updated. And all of the other implications in terms of how the council sets its annual plan and its long-term plan are reflective of the best information going forward as well. So Zena's been leading the team who are reaching out to the community, doing sharing information to enable the community to actually engage with council and provide us with that information. And we'll be doing that in a very constructive way so that the community are informed as to what the classifications are, what might be relevant for them, and how we can answer any questions. Key thing is that you'll note in the arrears balances, they are relatively static at approximately $10 million, despite the process that we're going through and writing off. Some of those rates balances which shouldn't have been applied if the policy had been applied to those accounts correctly in the first place. But what we're trying to avoid is being in a position where we write off the entire amount and then don't adjust the database to rate for those correctly going forward and be in the same situation in several years' time.
Thank you. Councillor Tarawera, I notice your hands up. Question?
Hi, Morena koutou. Hey, enjoyed the workshop yesterday, the part that I was involved with at Roma Marae, and it's really interesting, even for myself as a Māori ward councillor, to hear the views, the queries that Māori are asking. But my question, and thank you for the report, is, like, what's the status of abandoned land on Māori land that you've got on page 71? What does that mean in terms of Māori land? Is that people who haven't paid rates for 3 years or not living there or?
So through the chair, so previously we had Māori freehold land that was listed as abandoned. Until the Whenua Māori Amendment Act came through, that the changes, one of those changes was that we were no longer able to sell Māori freehold land that was considered abandoned. So as we go through reviewing these accounts, the reclassification of that will be changed, so it will not be falling under the abandoned land category going forward.
So, yeah, so will that be to do with people getting in contact with you, and it might be that there could have been some deceased big number left on it or
so normally it is that the owners are deceased, there's multiple owners, we don't have contact details for them, or they are currently going through the succession plan. So a lot of factors can play into that, and we're hoping that once we complete the review, that we will have a clearer understanding of where our gaps are, and we're able to make sure going forward that we have all the information correct.
Kia ora, ngā mihi.
Any other questions at all? Chair Green,
Through you, Acting Chair. I guess my concern is that at the moment we're showing this as receivables. And if we haven't got a receivable at the extent of this number, it's probably going to be of interest to our external auditors. And it should be of interest to this committee. And as part of your process, I appreciate you need to do it very thoroughly. But there are also, I understand, changes to the classification or clarity being granted out of central government. There's some process there at the moment underway. I'm not totally familiar with it. But from your work, if we can also be thinking about developing an estimate for year end about what portion of that $10 million ultimately should not be recoverable by this council due to misclassifications, so that we can work to improve the quality of the estimate of what the council is actually due versus what has potentially been incorrectly invoiced.
Totally agree.
Yep.
Yeah. If Emil was here, he would total call what you said. What do we call it? Ghost money. So we're never going to get it, and we keep making an LTP with that money in it.
Okay, any other questions? I don't think so. So I'll put this item to the vote. All in favour? Carried. So we are going to do a act.
Thank you, everyone, and apologies there. That's been a different matter that I was required to be at, and the judge unfortunately couldn't reschedule it away from the 10 o'clock this morning. I had expected to be in sooner, but there is a saying out there for those of us that are not lawyers, and apologies in advance for anyone that is. But how do you tell whether a lawyer is dead? The answer is their lips have stopped moving. So yes, the legal arguments went on, and I actually exited myself out because they were still going on. But well, I'm here. Anyway, we're moving on now to the Far North report. And we have Lisa here.
Oh, yes, I'll just thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I perhaps hand the floor over to you initially, just to run through your report, and then we'll perhaps take questions from the members.
Thank you. Thank you for having us again. First of all, apologies on behalf of Andy. He's unable to join us today, so Rob stepped into the shoes of when he's our COO. joining me this morning, so we will try and hold the fort on behalf of Andy. So December quarter, our half year point, I guess that is feels a little while ago now. Where I guess we've actually ended the next quarter and we're in the process of developing, of putting that report together as well. But I think the news is much the same as what we saw from Q1. We started to see the nice trend carry on in Q2 and we continue Q3 as well. So if I just sort of start off on the business overview, unfortunately, page numbers, apologies for that. So I guess the two real key financials aside, which I'll go into next, but two real key achievements for that, particularly in that quarter. First of all was the completion of the Dargaville Community Housing Project shortly before Christmas, completing 46 new homes at Ranfurly, and that started to be tenanted in January.
Yes, early January.
Early January. We have a sale of part of that property that will be completed, is scheduled to be completed before the end of the year. But that was certainly a key achievement for. The other highlight in the quarter operationally was the recertification, something close to Ron's part, the recertification of the Bay of Islands Airport for another five years. So that, alongside the Marina certification in Q1, is again nice vote of confidence in that we are operating as expected. Onto the SOI targets. So the KPIs outlined in our SOI, we're on track to meet all of those. It's a half year point. And even since the December time, there hasn't been anything to pop up that would indicate that we're not going to meet those targets. I think when we came to meet you at the end of the Q1 period, we had slightly dipped under the consolidated funds to assets ratio, slightly under that 50%. As expected, we've come back above that at the end of December after recognising the estimated revaluation on the completion of Ranfurly. So those are all on track. Onto the actual finances themselves. Here's my part. Good position at the half year point. So we're tracking ahead of budget, tracking to meet our full year SOI target of 2 million operating profit. And we're tracking well ahead of last year. We've got a couple of property sales in both years that can kind of distort that a little bit. When we strip those back, we're well ahead of last year, mainly due to a number of reasons, partly due to the community housing projects that are completed since last year, and also just operationally, we're certainly outperforming better, which is really nice to see. So at the end of December, we had a profit before tax of just under 13 million. That included the estimated revaluation gain, which isn't part of our SOI target. So when we pull that back, we had a operating profit of just over 2 million compared to a budget of just over 900,000. And as I mentioned, the to-date performance includes the sale of one of our properties as well. All our divisions were currently operating ahead of budget, which again is pleasing to see. We have a small timing difference on the housing side, and we expect that to reverse out by the end of the year. So again, pleasing to see. The summer period, which you'll see more in the next quarter, has been it's been quite a favourable summer again. So that's we're tracking well. So no alarm bells there, which is a nice thing to report. On the balance sheet, nothing unusual there or anything different really from what we've seen here before. That's tracking in line with as we expect. So I haven't really got anything in particular to highlight in that space. And then the last bit of our report on health and safety.
Our health and safety program is reported on and continue to deliver against it. For us, it's a case of continuing security and how we approach it, and also a lot of focus on our risk management within the business and being very active in that space. So as reported on, we continue well, highlighting again the recertification of Bay of Islands Airport, and just coming down the channel for us is a new fire appliances, which is pretty exciting. So they will be here later in April. And we'll ensure there's some publicity around that, the community too. Thank you.
That's I guess the main highlights from us. So it's just, yeah, if there's any, if we can take any question.
Committee members, any questions?
Yes.
Councillor McNally.
I realise this is end of December, but on your key targets continued, North Park, how many vacancies of your buildings there? Do you have any vacancies?
None.
None. Deliver social housing. Given the impact of some of the government changes, is there any change to your business plan going forward?
So do you want to answer that one?
I can comment on that. Well, the settings have changed, and we are remaining there in the communication and conversation with them to look for the opportunities in that space. But you're quite right, Steve. Some of the significant settings have altered, and there isn't an abundance of clarity out of government.
And last question, pleased to hear about Bay of Islands Airport. What about Kaitaia? Is it looking like a cost centre going forward?
Again, I can comment on that. Very pleased to say that with ourselves and council, we have engaged on the delivery of the resilience upgrade funding. So that is a work in progress at the moment. From our point of view, it's been the managers of the site having the clarity over the ownership creates a platform to move forward with. So we're very encouraged about where we are. Delivery of the resilience work will occur from here through toll, targeted to complete in May 2026. And that will be a significant upgrade to the infrastructure and also provide opportunity for enhanced services as well.
And that's mostly externally funded. I know there's a chunk of money from the government, but what do we have to contribute to council?
1.7.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. I did have a question. Actually, with a slightly different lead, and that is any emerging risks that we should be aware of. And the key one, which was already mentioned, and that is the government change to the housing legislation. Are there anything you can say in public? I should say.
So we obviously continue, we monitor the risks on an ongoing basis. There's nothing that we believe requires additional or new management. We think we're managing our risk profile as well as can be expected. I guess we do recognise that the community housing landscape has changed from what we had seen within the recent times. We are working on a number of projects to make sure we're in a good position if some of those settings change again. And we're also recognising that we need to diversify our portfolio and projects as well to make sure we're not relying on one bucket as well. So I think we are, working in that space.
The next question online is Councillor Howard.
I'm Morena koutou. Hey, I'm wanting to ask two questions. One about Kaitaia Airport, and I heard you answer that something will be done by 2026. I'm kind of wondering what's going to happen this year, like the land transfer happened in December and absolutely nothing's happened. I'm talking about the air controller house is not ready to be moved into. There's some little things that need to be made to fit. basic health and safety, and a critical thing that people have been asking for, other than the runway update, is the emergency fuel. So is there something going to happen in 2025? Like, I don't want to wait till 2026. We'll be gone by then. And the second question, if you could answer that first, please.
I can comment on that. A number of the deliverables within the agreed funding program are being delivered or commenced being delivered in 2025 calendar year.
Oh, God, boy. Soon, I hope.
We have a breakdown of what they are. Charlie, I can share those. I think you already have those, and perhaps best if they then shared with yourself to the team.
And just to note, just so that Whānau Holdings know that Mai Takoto and the mana whenua want to be involved in the caretaking, the maintenance and all that kind of stuff. I'll leave that there. My second question, yeah, I like to see something happen this year. The second question is rangitane. And I know that at our recent board meeting, we supported a downgrade of the rangitane and maritime. Is that still a feasible thing for holdings?
That's an item that I'm not familiar with, but we'll have to come back to the members and to council and give you a response.
Thank you. Couple.
Just in my messy questions, can you speak to your narrative around the operating expenses? Because the first thing I pick up in that table compared to last year at this time is a surge in OPEX, but then you talk about how things like R&M has been front loaded, so it may even out. Yeah, can you add a bit more commentary to give me comfort that OPEX isn't, just getting into the operating profit?
Yeah, so there's a fair enough. There's a few things which makes that number look like it's gone up more than it probably has. Main thing is around how we're needing to disclose some of our construction contracts. So when we budgeted, and also with the numbers you've seen last year, we really had the net profit, I guess, the net result come through, the margin come through. However, we've got a couple of projects where we're having to gross up the revenue and the expenses. So that's why there's a high value variance against budget in the both revenue and expenses side as that gross up. But the net profit is in line with where we expected.
Is that something that you're going to be setting in stone going forward, that it will be grossed up going forward?
It depends on the nature of each of the contracts that we enter into. So so basically as we enter into each new contract, we need to assess how we need to disclose it. And when we're setting the budget, obviously we the ones that we have at that point. And then, there may be some changes during the year.
Okay. The other thing, I just wanted to add kōrero to the Kaitaia Airport. One of the assurances that we gave was that there would be a working group established, and the vision is that there'll be a working group with Whānau Holdings at the table, representatives from Hapu community and council, so that instead of having this kōrero at Te Miromiro, we're having regular get-togethers, not we, I won't be on that committee, but you're having giving regular updates and receiving feedback from community and the hapu involved, that have a relationship with that whenua. Yeah. Just wanted to make sure that Whānau Holdings is aware of that, and we're meant to be having a paper come to Te Kuaka or council to formalise that. to the CE.
So just with regards to Kaitaia Airport, the contract's just been signed for the works with final folders. We can circulate an information paper, I think, to update everybody on what will take place this year and what will the tail end of the project, which will take place the first half of next year. I have given instructions to staff that there's a working group required. I think that's in process, was my understanding.
Yes, I believe so, and I'm in touch with the council team to determine how that process will work through the delivery. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's all in process.
Oh,
You there?
one final comment from me. It's pleasing to see that dividend, which will help. It's not going to reduce the estimated 11.3% rates increase, but it means that it's not going to be higher than that, which is wonderful.
Councillor Radisich, did you have a comment?
Yeah, has there been any progress regarding the Kaitaia old warehouse? Where do we stand on this at this very moment?
Yeah,
I think
is that
that's it's in process. There is no update that I'm aware of at this stage. Speaking on behalf of Council Land Final Holders.
So nothing's been done at this very moment.
Correct. Well, no new proposal has been received.
Charlie, have you got something you wanted to mention in there?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to top up on our Chief Executive's comments, staff are working through the process that has been set out by council and will report back in the timeframe that's been indicated. So I understand that is May at this point. So work is going on. Staff are working hard in the background, but due to the commercial nature of the discussions that are being had with parties, we're not in a position to discuss anything further at this point. But rest assured, it is happening in the background.
Thank you for that. Couple of questions. We're talking about the revaluation on the housing project and the fact that 50% of that project will be on sold before the end of the financial year. Are you in a position to, and I know it's a directed decision, but to indicate whether the council will see the dividend this side of 30th of June? Because last year we ended up with a budget difference due to the fact that the declaration by the directors was shortly after balance date and we couldn't bring it into the accounts. It would be really good from our point of view as a shareholder if we could have clarity on, assuming everything tracks as you anticipate, the timing of that dividend.
So a couple of points. The revaluation there that's been reported is for the portion of the property that we expect to hold. So the portion that we're selling is actually in those grossed up numbers as referring to. But in terms of the dividend, we do expect to meet our SOI commitment of a special dividend paid before the end of June. So we're expecting that we're on track to deliver that. I think that solves the issue that you'd be concerned about in terms of recognising the new financials.
Yeah, if it's not declared by the Far North Holding Directors by 30 June, we cannot recognise it, which was a variance we got last year. So just perhaps clarity on that and keeping us informed if the wheels are falling off for any reason.
So we normally declare and pay our ordinary dividend following the end of the year. And that's the one we just paid in February. And then we have the practice now of declaring and paying the special dividend in the year. But maybe it's something I'll follow up with you if that's okay, Charlie, just to make sure we're clear on the same page of how we can best meet your needs. Yeah.
Thank you. Supplementary question there. You're on track for your operating profit at $2 million. that was on the premise that when this was set, that you were funding externally from commercial banks. You've now got the benefit of LGFA and cheaper financing. Is it reasonable for us to expect that the operating profit of greater than $2 million will be increased by the interest saving that your shareholders' position has enabled you to get? Therefore, we can potentially look forward to an increased dividend stream to be able to do additional work for the benefit of the ratepayers.
So,
Or let them try.
so LGFA, as you know, has certainly made a big difference to us in the game. It's been a great, it was great to have your support in that. We actually did anticipate that happening at the time we set the budget. So we set ourselves a target to have that in play by the end of September 24, end of Q1, which is what we did actually bring it was implemented in September. So when we set the budget, we did factor the lower cost of funds into account. So pleasingly, we met the budget premise, I guess. Yeah.
Oh, that's just a quick question. Last year we introduced you, fund holdings management to our Te Hono team. Just wondering if you have an update for us on the Te Ao Māori program at Fund Holdings, how that's progressed.
So we've still got to do more work in that space. We have talked about, we would all like to spend some more time learning Te Reo ourselves. I think as a group, we're pretty we've tested this from your time with us. We're lacking in that space. We have reached out to get some help how we might set that in place. We do need to follow that up. And then we, I think the council have taken the approach of setting 3 objectives for each of your teams. We want to take that forward and make sure we've got that in play for.
Excellent.
Yeah, we will need a bit of help.
Any other questions? Our friends at Far North. We have a recommendation on page 54. I have someone that wishes to move the recommendation. Thank you, Kofi.
I'll second.
Thank you, Deputy Chair. Being no further discussion, all those in favour? Against, if any? Carried. Thank you for the korero on this topic. You're a very important part of the additional things that we can do for our community from your activities, and we're very, very focused on ensuring that the community can see the benefits of the community. So extra things that we can do outside rating funding as a result of the work that you're doing at the holding company. So thank you for that.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Item 5.5. We have resource consent abatement notice update. Who's talking on that today? Thank you. Come up and join us at the table. Thank you. I'll hand over to you to lead us through the paper and the update. Is Doug unavailable today?
Doug is here as well.
Oh, sorry, you're just behind the chair. Come up and join us.
Oh, really?
Welcome. So given us the paper, perhaps take us through the highlights and the key points. Any other matters you'd like to raise and clarification?
So the first point that we'd like to highlight is that the previous report was focusing around as a risk update around notices. And we've had
some robust discussion with our risk representative within council. And we have agreed that abatement notices themselves do not represent a risk. They are actually an enforcement tool, and that they represent the risk of non-compliance to the organisation. So we're doing some work in the background there to link the abatement notice work that we're doing, providing an update there into the reporting of the risk of non-compliance for the organisation. I think that's the key distinction between the report presented today and the previous report. So this report here is really acknowledging what non-compliance, the risks non-compliance does represent. So that's the environmental, operational, financial and legal and reputational risks to the organisation. We have determined our key for reporting in this update here to represent high as long-term or non-resolvable short-term issues, non-compliances, medium as several issues to ensure compliance, and low as short time to resolve or low cost. Yeah, so that's directly targeted at addressing the abatement notice, so that particular non-compliance that Northern Regional Council, as the regulator, has notified us of. So as we work through the report, we have listed the outstanding abatement notices as at the date of writing the report. And we've also included the mitigation actions, which you can see for Okanoni, Kaitaia and Ahipara wastewater. They're all significant capital works or plant upgrades required to address the abatement non-compliance. And the 4 remaining relatively low, including Kohu, that also requires some capital works, and the other 3 are relatively low, and they're being worked through largely in the operational space.
Question?
Yeah, just a question. Like, I noticed some of these schemes, like Kogo has quite high through the scheme, and you're currently dislodging the pond. That scheme is different than most of ours, that they have the primary treatment of some septic tanks, and it's the overflow that goes in there. I wouldn't have thought there'd be much dislodging required.
So it doesn't get desludged often. However, we have done it because there were issues around the general state of that particular, the pond area in there. And the other reason for doing the desludging at this time is the piece of capital works that had been identified to upgrade the plant for the purpose of improving treatment is to install a baffle curtain. So the idea is to desludge prior to the installation of that piece of equipment, and the installation of that baffle curtain is currently waiting the completion of the desludging process.
Any other questions? Oh, got a couple. Put in there. Are there any of our other resource consents where we're in danger or a breach that haven't surfaced into this report that you're aware of, or any risk areas that we ought to be aware of, and whether you've got them under control and mitigated, or whether they could, I guess, tip over into an abatement notice?
You can speak to the one in Rawani. The Rawani
wastewater treatment plant is also in a similar situation. It needs dislodging. It's currently not the subject of an abatement notice, but if that's not addressed in the medium term with more dislodging, then that could probably result in a similar sort of action. But the NRC is aware of it, and the contractor is doing what they can at the moment to ensure that there's no discharge out into the wetland.
So we're satisfied we're under control on that one?
Not really, no.
So,
be honest.
Yeah, just curious because Rowan is one that we purchased some land and we're shifting it across the road. Is that not part of some action taken to mitigate against all of that?
The Ramani plant is also in the middle of the application for a resource consent.
Okay.
So that puts limits or involves consideration on any works due to the application of the new consent, and then considering discharge to land as well. So there's a few things going on at once.
Yeah, the community have been involved with that discharge to land is something they wanted to see.
Yes.
So just to come back to your question, well, we can't guarantee the action of the regulator, of course. I think the important thing to note is that we are working with the regulator and acknowledge what the situation is there. And there's also an active working group in that space. So there is really full oversight in what's happening with that space. And I think the comment around the purchase of the land is that we've got some process that we need to go through in order to be able to designate that land for the purpose of wastewater. So it's not quite an immediate thing that we can use that. We can use that land for that purpose. But that work is going on in the background here.
Thank you. Any other councillor Court?
Can I just expand on your line of inquiry? Terrific question. Whether or not we need to start identifying potential or emerging threats, even if they're not fully scoped or realised yet. And a heads up. Apologise, it's a bit hard to talk in two directions at the same time. But this morning we heard about nearly $900,000 worth of unbudgeted expenditure on. I can't remember the exact words now, but it was in relation to water, and it was unplanned and reactive maintenance. 900,000, close to 1% of the rates. And we just identified, and if you hadn't asked the question, we wouldn't be aware of it. There is potentially an emerging issue. Should we be looking to capture this?
Any other comments on that? Charlie.
Through you, Mr. Chair. I do understand that significant work is going in the background as well in relation to existing compliance issues like we've got in this report, but also where we have other potential things coming through under the local water done well analysis, which is being conducted. So I think we just need to make sure that we're connecting the dots in the background, and the additional insights that are coming out from that assessment process is then also reported back to elected members through the appropriate channels as that information is becoming sufficiently distilled to have that horizon scan for those risks that are coming. From a corporate services point of view as well, I'm particularly interested in understanding and presenting elected members with the financial considerations going into the annual and long-term plans when we have risks in front of us that we can potentially head off at the pass by ensuring we have the budgets available to deal with that. So connecting that, and I'll make sure I discuss that with Mary and the team, and we bring that back to this meeting.
I think in first your question, my view is that the report should probably be highlighting potential risks and how we're mitigating, because the role of this committee is not to get into the detail underneath, but to gain assurance that we're under control. So these ones have obviously got to an abatement notice, but if we're acknowledged that we may be in breach of our resource consent and that we've got to do work, this committee should be probably made aware of it, and really to get the assurance from the team that we've got a mitigation strategy in place, we're managing it, and we're talking with the regulators and doing all the right things, so that, to use that regulatory term, we're willingly compliant, and that we're therefore avoiding the risk of it getting to the next level. Now, things do happen. Periodically, they will catch us by surprise, but it then focuses back, as Charlie was saying, into our annual plans, long-term plans, to be thinking that we've got the right funding strategies, we've got a asset replacement or maintenance plan in place that's properly funded, to avoid us getting into situations where someone's got to get out the ticket book. Yes, comments you've got?
Big picture reply to that is really this is all embodied in the local water's done well work. As we speak, we have significant engineering resources deployed, reviewing our asset condition and our asset data. We have plans for every single plant and every single network in our water infrastructure. So that's all coming together, and we will have a final detailed picture, I think, in the coming month that will inform our water service delivery plan and our asset management plan, our CapEx for coming years. So that work is very much in process, and obviously we will have to meet a certain standard in terms of the detail in that plan for the water service delivery plan, which is due on the 3rd of September this year.
Councillor McNally.
Yeah, mine relates to, I don't know if it's a, I'll just make an alert, I suppose. There's a water reservoir up on the top of Tahi Rise, Tihami, and that road's been on the move for several decades, probably 40 years. We have 4 sections on the south side of that road that can't be used, and that road accesses, I don't know, 20 plus ratepayers. But it was when I was driving around the countryside the other day, I looked at that water tank and went, well, that'd be a bugger if this slip went. So it just needs, when we're doing our water surface, our engineering update, can we have a look at that? I think it'll be a bigger picture there and a long-term problem relating to the road and a couple of sections not being usable.
Sorry, if I could just write down what I wanted to talk to, but yes, that's in my report, Steve. Thank you for, you must have read my councillor's report.
No.
No. Oh, well, it's been in there probably for since Cyclone Gabriel, Tahi Rise, and we need to have an update. This is not the committee for it, but we need to receive the update.
No, this is the committee for it. This is audit risk and finance.
Yes. But there's an information report that should be coming to apprise us of the movements and what the next steps are for upgrading that road, so that reservoir and all the other services. There's actually been a fire because the road has moved so much it caused a fire in somebody's home. Yes, but what I wanted to speak to is the fact that this report, I just acknowledge the fact that this report is coming to us. There was about a year during this triennium where we weren't getting the information on abatement notices. And so I just want to acknowledge that, you know, we're all across this. We've received this information at Te Koko infrastructure, you know, quite in depth, so we know what's happening. But I'm of the understanding that when there is going to be a costly abatement, you know, like, and us ending up in the court or what have you, it would be raised through this committee's report, or sooner if it doesn't align with timing. Yeah, no, thank you.
Thank you. It's been a good corridor there on the topic, and thank you, Mary and Doug, for coming up and being able to have a free and frank discussion. It's really good. We have a recommendation on page 75. If someone's prepared to move in that direction. Thank you, Councillor McNally, profile seconding. Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favour? Against, if any, carried. We now have the resolution to move into public excluded. And the matters are set out on page 79 of the public agenda. I have someone that's prepared to move in that direction. Thank you, Kofi. Like Councillor Vucevic. All those in favour? We're now in PX.